When I was buying a birthday present for my daughter, the cashier suddenly grabbed my arm and whispered, "Don't go to the party under any circumstances." I thought he was crazy and brushed it off because it was a family celebration. Where would there be any betrayal? But ignoring the warning led to terrible consequences. You won't believe what happened next. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The book slipped from my fingers when the phone buzzed. Logistics management in the digital age hit the hardwood floor with a dull thud, pages splaying open like broken wings. I've been reading the same paragraph 3 times anyway, my mind wandering to the gray expanse of Lake Michigan stretching endlessly beyond my 47th floor window. Another buzz, then another. Probably another telemarketer, I muttered, adjusting my worn blue sweater and reaching for my reading glasses hanging around my neck. The afternoon light streamed across my leather armchair, casting long shadows in the apartment that had become both sanctuary and prison since Margaret's death. The phone screen lit up. Cecilia. My heart stuttered. The device trembled in my weathered hands as I stared at her name. A name I hadn't seen on my phone for exactly 2 years, 3 months, and 16 days. Not that I was counting. I opened the message with shaking fingers. "Dad, I know a lot has happened between us, but it's my birthday this Saturday at 7 p.m. I'd love for you to come. Address, 425 Oak Street, Evanston. Love you, Cecilia." I read it twice, then a third time. "Love you, Cecilia." The words blurred as memories crashed over me like Lake Michigan waves during a winter storm. Our last conversation echoed in my mind, her voice sharp with accusation, mine defensive and wounded. "You don't understand what it's like, Dad. Luke lost everything in the business collapse. We're drowning here, and you're sitting on Mom's life insurance like it's some sacred trust fund. Your mother wanted that money for emergencies, not to bail out Luke's poor decisions. Mom would want us to help family, but you've always been selfish. That's why she worked herself to death, while you focused on your precious logistics career." The conversation had ended with a door slamming and 2 years of silence. I stood abruptly, the reading glasses swinging on their chain. My bare feet felt cold against the hardwood as I paced to the wall of family photos, our life in frames. Margaret in her wedding dress, radiant and hopeful. Cecilia at 8, gap-toothed and grinning at her first piano recital. Luke and Cecilia's wedding day, when I'd still believed he was good enough for my daughter. The phone felt heavy in my palm as I studied Cecilia's message again. October 25th, her birthday was tomorrow. October 26th. How had 2 years passed so quickly? 2 years of silence and now suddenly an invitation, I whispered to the empty apartment. What's changed? I touched the frame holding Cecilia's piano recital photo. She'd worn a blue dress that day, had practiced Chopin's Minute Waltz for months. After her performance, she'd run straight to me, ignoring the other parents' congratulations, and thrown her arms around my waist. "Did you hear, Daddy? I didn't make any mistakes." "You were perfect, sweetheart. Absolutely perfect." Now she was 38, a mother herself. Time had carved lines I'd never seen around her eyes, created distance I'd never intended. The phone buzzed again, probably another text, but I didn't look. Instead, I stared at that little girl in the blue dress, frozen forever in a moment when I was still her hero, when love was simple and unconditional. The autumn light was fading, turning the lake a deeper gray. Somewhere in Evanston, my daughter was planning a birthday party. Somewhere in my chest, hope and suspicion warred, like opposing forces, neither willing to surrender completely. I clutched the phone tighter, my knuckles white against the black case, and wondered what had really prompted her to break 2 years of silence. I moved away from the photos, the phone still warm in my grip. 3 o'clock. The numbers on the cable box glowed accusingly as I walked past my desk toward the wall safe, hidden behind my collection of business journals. My fingers found the familiar combination, Margaret's birthday, and the metal door swung open with a soft click. Inside, beneath important documents and Margaret's jewelry, lay the lottery ticket, still crisp after 3 months, the numbers printed in that distinctive blue ink. 7/14/23/31/42, Powerball 18, $2 million after taxes. My retirement had just become very comfortable. I pulled out the ticket and a photo tucked behind it. Myself at the Bellagio gift shop in Las Vegas, tired after a long day of logistics conferences. The cashier had been young, bored, checking her phone between customers. I'd bought water and, on impulse, 5 lottery tickets from the machine near the register. "Feeling lucky today?" she'd asked without looking up. "Just thirsty," I'd replied, pocketing the tickets and forgetting about them for weeks. 3 months ago, I'd finally remembered to check those crumpled papers buried in my travel bag. 4 losers and 1 life changer. The moment my laptop screen confirmed the numbers, I'd sat in stunned silence for 20 minutes, wondering if Margaret could see me from wherever she'd gone. I closed the safe and returned to my armchair, studying the ticket. The win hadn't been secret long. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, had sharp eyes and loose lips. She'd spotted the lottery officials' business cards on my door when they'd come for verification photos. "Preston, heard you got lucky with those tickets. Congratulations," she'd chirp the next morning, her voice carrying down the hallway to anyone within earshot. Word spread through the building like smoke. Then to Margaret's old bridge club. Then who knows where else? In a city of millions, news about windfall money somehow finds its way to exactly the wrong ears. I leaned back in the chair, eyes closed, the ticket resting on my chest. 3 months since the win became public knowledge. 3 months, and now this invitation from Cecilia. The timing felt sharp as a blade against my throat. Of course someone could have talked, I murmured to the empty room. But could Cecilia have found out? My analytical mind, the same one that had optimized supply chains for 30 years, began connecting dots. Luke's financial troubles. Cecilia's pride preventing her from asking for help directly. A daughter who'd inherited her mother's intelligence and her father's stubborn streak, but also a daughter who'd once cried over injured birds, who'd saved her allowance to buy Christmas presents for strangers. The same girl who'd called me every Sunday during college, who'd asked my advice about everything from career choices to cake recipes. Traffic hummed 47 floors below. The lake darkened as clouds gathered, promising rain. I opened my eyes and studied Cecilia's message once more, searching for hidden meanings in simple words. "Love you, Cecilia." When had she last said those words? When had I last said them back? The questions hung in the air like dust motes, visible but untouchable. My chest tightened with something between hope and dread, the uncomfortable feeling of standing at a crossroads where both paths led into fog. I folded the lottery ticket carefully, creasing the edges with precise movements. Tomorrow was her birthday. 38 years since Margaret had placed that red, screaming bundle in my arms and whispered, "She's perfect, Preston. She's absolutely perfect." Maybe she still was. Maybe I was just a bitter old man seeing schemes where only reconciliation lived. Maybe my daughter simply missed her father and wanted him at her birthday party. The phone buzzed again. This time I didn't look. Instead, I closed my eyes and tried to remember what it felt like to trust completely, to love without conditions or calculations. I opened my eyes with deliberate force, pushing away the creeping doubts like cobwebs from a forgotten corner. "No," I said aloud to the empty apartment, my voice stronger than I'd expected. "I can't think like this about my own daughter. Maybe she really missed me. Maybe motherhood changed her perspective." Standing up from the chair, I felt energy returning to limbs that had grown heavy with suspicion. The lottery ticket crinkled as I placed it back in the safe, sealing away both the money and my paranoid thoughts about it. 3 quick steps took me to the kitchen where Margaret's old calendar still hung on the wall, a stubborn reminder of routine I couldn't bear to remove. I grabbed the red marker from the counter and circled Saturday's date with bold strokes. October 26th, Cecilia's 38th birthday. "Time flies," I muttered, capping the marker. "I need to try to rebuild this relationship." My home office occupied the corner where morning light usually pooled, though now the afternoon shadows stretched long across my mahogany desk. I settled into the chair and pulled out a yellow notepad, the same kind I'd used for logistics planning for decades. At the top, I wrote, "Gift ideas for Cecilia," in my careful engineer's handwriting. What did I know about her now, mother of 2 children whose names I barely remembered, marketing professional, lover of good wine if memory served? But what about her deeper interests? What made her smile the way she had as a child? My pen hovered over the paper as memories surfaced. Cecilia at 8, practicing piano with fierce concentration, her small fingers stretching for octaves she couldn't quite reach, determined to master pieces meant for bigger hands. She'd loved jewelry too, had raided Margaret's jewelry box for dress-up games, draping herself in pearls and clip-on earrings while performing elaborate tea parties. Jewelry, I wrote, piano music books, family photos in nice frames. The jewelry idea felt right, something substantial, meaningful, a statement that said I valued her, that I wanted to invest in our relationship's future. The Magnificent Mile shopping district was only a 15-minute taxi ride. I could find something beautiful at Tiffany's or Cartier, something worthy of the woman she'd become. I picked up the framed photo from my desk, Cecilia at her first piano recital, wearing that blue dress with white lace collar. Margaret had sewn it herself, working late into the evening for weeks, creating something special for our daughter's big moment. Cecilia had been nervous that morning, her small hands shaking as she practiced scales. "What if I forget the notes, Daddy?" she'd whispered while I adjusted her hair ribbon. "Then you'll remember them again," I'd said. "Music doesn't disappear, sweetheart. It's always inside you, waiting." She'd played Chopin's Minute Waltz flawlessly that day. When the final notes faded, she'd look directly at me in the audience, her face glowing with pride and relief. Then she'd run to me afterward, her dress flying, and thrown herself into my arms. "Did you hear, Daddy? I didn't make any mistakes." "You were perfect, sweetheart. Absolutely perfect." I traced the photo's edge with my finger, feeling the weight of lost years. What recitals had I missed? What achievements had gone uncelebrated? What fears had gone uncomforted because of pride and stubbornness on both sides? Tomorrow I would shop for jewelry. Something elegant, timeless, perhaps pearls like the ones she'd admired in Margaret's collection. I would wrap it carefully, write a heartfelt card, and attend her party with an open heart. I would hug my grandchildren whose faces I barely knew and try to repair what time and hurt had damaged. The apartment felt warmer suddenly, as if hope had its own temperature. Outside, the first drops of rain began spattering the windows, but inside I felt lighter than I had in months. My daughter had reached out across 2 years of silence. She'd used the word love. Maybe that was enough. Maybe it was everything. I looked at Cecilia's childhood photo one more time, memorizing her gap-toothed smile, her eager eyes, her absolute trust in the world's goodness. Tomorrow I would try to be worthy of that trust again. Tomorrow I would remember how to be her father instead of her critic. The rain picked up outside, drumming against the glass like applause, and I began planning my approach to winning back my daughter's heart. The drive to Magnificent Mile took 30 minutes through Saturday afternoon traffic, Chicago's streets bustling with weekend shoppers and tourists. I'd chosen my best navy blazer and gray slacks, the outfit Margaret used to call my important business look. The parking garage beneath Water Tower Place charged $25 for 2 hours, but today money felt inconsequential compared to the mission ahead. Treasured Moments occupied a prime corner location, its gleaming windows displaying artfully arranged luxury goods under soft spotlighting. Classical music drifted from hidden speakers as I pushed through the heavy glass door, breathing in the scent of leather and expensive perfume. Other customers moved quietly through the spacious interior, speaking in hushed tones appropriate for a place where price tags carried multiple zeros. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across marble countertops, while well-dressed sales associates glided between displays like dancers following choreography. Everything here whispered exclusivity, from the thick carpet beneath my feet to the silk-wrapped gift boxes stacked behind the main counter. I wandered first through the personalized gifts section, monogrammed leather portfolios, engraved crystal paperweights, custom photo frames, too impersonal for a reconciliation gift. The home decor area offered beautiful vases and decorative sculptures, but nothing felt right for Cecilia's personality. What did 38-year-old marketing professionals want these days? The jewelry counter drew me like gravity. Diamonds sparkled under halogen lights, their facets throwing tiny rainbows across black velvet display cushions. Necklaces, bracelets, rings, and earrings arranged in careful rows, each piece more elegant than the last. This felt right. Something precious, lasting, beautiful enough to match the daughter I remembered. May I help you find something special? A woman approached with practiced grace, her silver hair pulled into an elegant chignon. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salaries, and her smile held the perfect balance of warmth and professional distance. I need a gift for my daughter, I explained, suddenly feeling underdressed despite my best blazer. Her 38th birthday. We haven't we haven't spoken in some time. I want something meaningful. Her expression softened with understanding. Reconciliation gifts require special consideration. What are her preferences? Conservative or contemporary? Gold or silver? Diamonds or colored stones? She always loved sparkling things as a child, I said, remembering 8-year-old Cecilia, draped in Margaret's costume jewelry. Diamonds, I think. Something elegant but not too flashy. She guided me to a display case filled with diamond earrings. These are very popular for milestone birthdays, classic styles that never go out of fashion. My eyes settled on a pair of stud earrings, each centered with a brilliant cut diamond surrounded by smaller stones in a delicate halo setting. They caught the light beautifully, sophisticated enough for a professional woman, yet timeless enough to suit any occasion. Tell me about these, I said, pointing to the pair that had captured my attention. Excellent choice, sir. 1 carat, total weight. VS1 grade diamonds. Very high quality. The setting is platinum, which won't tarnish or discolor. These earrings could easily become family heirlooms. She removed them from the case with practiced care, placing them on a small velvet tray for closer inspection. The diamonds threw light like captured stars, beautiful enough to make Cecilia's eyes shine the way they had during her piano recital all those years ago. She always loved sparkling things, I repeated softly, imagining Cecilia opening the gift box, seeing these earrings for the first time. I'll take them. This is an excellent choice, sir. VS1 grade diamonds, very high quality. The price tag read $3,500, more than I'd spent on jewelry since Margaret's engagement ring 39 years ago. But money seemed meaningless compared to the possibility of seeing joy on my daughter's face again. Maybe this would help show that I'd forgiven everything from the past. Would you like special gift wrapping? The associate asked. We have beautiful presentation boxes. I nodded, watching her select an elegant navy box with gold trim. The earrings nestled perfectly in white silk padding, looking like tiny treasures worthy of a princess. This gift might bridge the gap between who we'd been and who we could become again. Walking toward the cash register, I felt lighter than I had in months. Tonight I would call Cecilia to confirm tomorrow's party attendance. Tomorrow I would hand her this beautiful gift and watch her face light up with surprise and happiness. The cash register stood like an altar at the front of the store, its screen glowing softly as I approached with the jewelry box tucked securely under my arm. Behind the counter, a middle-aged man with graying hair and tired eyes was just settling into his position, adjusting his name tag and checking the register's receipt paper. Good afternoon, he said automatically, then glanced up with the practiced smile of someone who'd worked retail longer than he'd planned. Find everything you needed? Yes, these earrings. I set the elegant navy box on the marble counter, feeling satisfied with my choice. Cecilia would love them, I was certain. Beautiful store you have here. Thank you, sir. He picked up the box and scanned the barcode on the bottom, his movements efficient but weary. Special occasion? My daughter's birthday. She's turning 38 tomorrow. Pride crept into my voice despite the complicated circumstances. Haven't seen her in a while, so I wanted something meaningful. The man nodded absently, focused on his screen. That'll be $3,700 with tax. Will that be cash, or... He stopped mid-sentence as I handed him my credit card, his eyes fixed on the name embossed in silver letters. Preston M. Hunt. Something shifted in his expression. The professional pleasantness evaporated, replaced by recognition that made his jaw tighten. His hands stilled on the card, and when he looked up at me again, his eyes held an intensity that made me step back instinctively. Listen, sir. His voice dropped to an urgent whisper as he leaned across the counter. Preston Hunt, right? Under no circumstances should you go to that party. Excuse me. I blinked, certain I'd misheard him. What are you talking about? His grip tightened on my credit card, and suddenly his hand shot out to grab my wrist across the counter. His fingers were stronger than they looked, calloused from years of physical work that didn't match his current retail position. Just trust me. Don't go. I jerked my hand back, stepping away from the counter. Young man, give me back my card. My voice carried the authority I'd once used with subordinates, who'd overstepped their bounds, but he didn't release his grip on my wrist. Please, I'm not crazy. There's something you need to know. Just complete the transaction. I pulled harder, finally freeing my arm from his surprisingly strong grasp. Other customers were beginning to stare, their quiet conversations stopping as they sensed the tension. His eyes darted around the store, probably calculating whether his manager was within earshot. When he spoke again, desperation leaked through his professional facade. Look, I work here part-time. It used to be my field before everything went wrong. I'm not some random lunatic, okay? I know things. What things? I demanded, though every instinct screamed at me to grab my card and leave immediately. Just, please don't go to that party. Whatever they've told you, whatever they've promised. He shook his head, running the credit card through the machine with trembling fingers. It's not what it seems. The machine beeped, requesting my signature on the small screen. I signed quickly, wanting nothing more than to escape this increasingly bizarre interaction. The man, his name tag read, Mark Wilson, printed my receipt with mechanical precision while his eyes remained fixed on my face. Here's your card, sir. He held it out, but when I reached for it, he didn't immediately let go. Please, just stay home tomorrow. I snatched the card from his grip and grabbed the jewelry box. Thank you for your concern, I said stiffly, backing toward the door. But I think you've confused me with someone else. I haven't, he called after me, his voice carrying across the store despite his attempt to keep quiet. Other customers were openly staring now, probably wondering if they were witnessing a robbery or mental breakdown. Preston Hunt from the Loop. I know exactly who you are. The heavy glass door couldn't close behind me fast enough. I strode quickly toward the parking garage, the jewelry box clutched against my chest like protective armor. Behind me, through the store windows, I could see Mark Wilson watching my retreat, with obvious distress etched across his features. What kind of place was this? How did a random cashier know not only my full name, but also where I lived? The encounter left me feeling exposed, as if I'd wandered into someone else's nightmare by mistake. The late afternoon air felt cold against my flushed face as I hurried toward my car, the jewelry box secure in my grip, but my mind reeling from the bizarre encounter. Other shoppers moved past me with normal Saturday concerns, arms full of purchases, children tugging at coats, couples debating dinner plans, while I felt like I'd stepped through some invisible barrier into unreality. How did he know my full name? The credit card displayed only P.M. Hunt in small letters, yet Mark Wilson had addressed me as Preston Hunt from the Loop with unsettling certainty. His desperation had felt genuine, not the calculated manipulation of a con artist or the rambling confusion of mental illness. Traffic on Michigan Avenue moved in fits and starts as I navigated toward the I-90 entrance ramp. Saturday evening brought out families heading to restaurants, couples dressed for theater shows, tourists clutching shopping bags and consulting phone maps, normal people living normal lives, while I sat trapped behind red lights, trying to make sense of a stranger's urgent warning. Under no circumstances should you go to that party. The words echoed in my memory with uncomfortable persistence. Mark's eyes had held real fear, not the vacant stare of delusion. Whatever he knew, or thought he knew, had genuinely terrified him. But how could he possibly know anything about Cecilia's birthday party? The invitation had come yesterday, less than 24 hours ago. Unless... I drummed my fingers against the steering wheel, fighting against paranoid thoughts that felt too much like the suspicions I deliberately abandoned yesterday. The logical explanations were obvious. Mark Wilson could have seen my name clearly when he processed the credit card transaction. He could have a history of strange behavior with customers. Retail work attracted all kinds of people, including those dealing with personal problems that affected their professional interactions. The traffic light finally changed, and I merged onto I-90 West, toward the loop. The evening sky was darkening, painted in shades of gray that matched Lake Michigan's choppy surface. Chicago's skyline rose ahead like a familiar promise of home and safety, yet something nagged at the edges of my consciousness. 25 minutes later, I parked in my building's garage and took the elevator to the 47th floor, the jewelry box still warm from my protective grip. My apartment welcomed me with its familiar silence. No random strangers grabbing my wrist. No desperate warnings about parties I shouldn't attend. I set the gift bag on my kitchen counter and paced to the living room windows. The city spread below in its usual pattern of lights and movement, indifferent to whatever drama had played out in a magnificent mile gift shop. Everything looked normal from up here, rational, controllable. Ridiculous, I said aloud to my reflection in the darkening window. Just a coincidence. But coincidences felt increasingly uncomfortable lately. First, Cecilia's invitation arriving 3 months after news of my lottery win became public. Now a stranger who somehow knew details about my life, warning me against attending her party. The logical part of my mind, the same analytical thinking that had built a successful career, began connecting dots I didn't want to see. I walked back to the kitchen and stared at the jewelry box, sitting innocently on the granite counter. $3,700 worth of hope and reconciliation, chosen with such care to bridge 2 years of hurt. Tomorrow evening I would drive to Evanston, ring Cecilia's doorbell, and hand her this beautiful gift while watching her face light up with surprise and joy. The way he grabbed my wrist, like he was desperate to warn me about something. I closed my eyes and leaned against the counter, feeling the weight of conflicting emotions. Trust or suspicion, hope or cynicism, love or fear. 2 years ago, I'd chosen pride and lost my daughter. Yesterday, I'd chosen hope and planned reconciliation. Today, a stranger had chosen desperation and planted seeds of doubt I couldn't quite dismiss. Outside, Chicago continued its Saturday evening rhythm, oblivious to the turmoil in apartment 4712. Tomorrow would bring answers, one way or another. Tomorrow I would discover whether Mark Wilson was a concerned stranger, a disturbed individual, or something else entirely. The jewelry box caught the overhead light, its navy surface gleaming with promise and possibility, while questions I couldn't answer multiplied like shadows in the approaching darkness. Enough. This is my daughter's birthday. I'm just going to enjoy the evening. The decision crystallized in my mind like ice forming on a winter lake, sudden, complete, unbreakable. I pushed away from the kitchen counter and grabbed the gift bag with renewed determination. Mark Wilson was clearly a troubled individual, perhaps dealing with mental health issues that made him fixate on random customers. I wouldn't let his paranoid fantasies poison what could be the most important night of my relationship with Cecilia. My bedroom mirror reflected a man who'd aged more than I cared to admit, but tonight called for dignity. I selected my finest navy suit, the one Margaret had helped me choose for our anniversary dinner 3 years ago, and paired it with the silver tie that brought out my eyes. The shower's hot water washed away the day's accumulated tension, and I emerged feeling renewed, purposeful. "Preston, you're a father," I said to my reflection while adjusting the tie knot. "Act accordingly." The drive to Evanston took me north along Lakeshore Drive before connecting to I-94, Chicago's familiar skyline shrinking in my rearview mirror as suburban neighborhoods replaced urban density. Classical music filled the car, Chopin, the same composer Cecilia had played during her childhood recital. The irony wasn't lost on me. Maybe we can finally talk like adults. Maybe I can meet my grandchildren properly, learn their middle names, discover their favorite books and games. 2 years was a lifetime in child development. They'd grown and changed while I'd nursed wounded pride in my lonely apartment. Evanston's tree-lined streets welcomed me with the comfortable prosperity of established families. Mature oak trees displayed autumn's full palette, burgundy, gold, deep orange, while well-maintained Victorian and colonial homes sat behind manicured lawns, like witnesses to generations of family celebrations. This was the neighborhood where successful professionals raised children who attended good schools and learned piano on Saturday afternoons. 55 Oak Street stood out even among its impressive neighbors. The colonial revival architecture featured classic proportions and elegant detailing, from the wraparound porch with its white columns to the dormered roof that suggested spacious bedrooms above. Warm light spilled from tall windows, and I could hear the gentle murmur of conversation mixed with soft jazz music drifting from inside. Other guests were arriving as I parked across the street. A couple in their 40s climbed the front steps carrying a wrapped gift and bottle of wine. An older woman emerged from a BMW with what appeared to be a homemade cake in a glass carrier. Normal people attending a normal birthday party for their friend, neighbor, or colleague. I checked my appearance one final time in the visor mirror, smoothed my silver hair, and took the jewelry gift bag from the passenger seat. The diamond earrings inside represented more than expensive jewelry. They symbolized my commitment to rebuilding our relationship, my willingness to invest in Cecilia's happiness despite past hurt. 38 years old, I murmured, walking toward the front porch. Where did the time go? The house felt alive with celebration as I approached. Through the large front windows, I caught glimpses of elegantly dressed people holding wine glasses, gesturing animatedly in conversation. Cecilia moved among them like a graceful hostess, her dark hair styled in an elegant updo that reminded me painfully of Margaret during our early marriage years. Standing at the heavy oak door, I could hear my daughter's laughter rising above the general conversation. Genuine, joyful, unguarded, in a way I hadn't heard since she was young. My heart tightened with anticipation and something approaching prayer. Let this be real. Let her invitation come from love, not calculation. Let tonight mark a new beginning for our fractured family. I raised my hand toward the brass doorbell, feeling the weight of the gift bag in my other hand, and prepared to step back into my daughter's life. The doorbell's chime echoed through the house, followed by footsteps approaching from inside. When the door swung open, Cecilia stood framed in warm light, her face transforming with what appeared to be genuine delight. "Dad, I'm so glad you came." She stepped forward immediately, wrapping me in an embrace that felt both familiar and foreign after 2 years of separation. Her perfume carried hints of jasmine and vanilla, sophisticated, expensive, nothing like the fruity body sprays she'd favored as a teenager. "Happy birthday, dear. You look wonderful." The words came easily, truthfully. Cecilia had grown into the kind of elegant woman Margaret would have been proud to see. Her black dress sophisticated without being flashy, her jewelry understated but clearly quality. She gestured me inside, taking my coat with practiced hostess grace. "Thank you for coming. I know it's been difficult between us." Her voice carried a slight tremor that could have been nervousness or emotion, but I'm really hoping we can move forward. The house's interior matched its promising exterior. Cream-colored furniture arranged around a marble fireplace, fresh flowers in crystal vases, artwork that suggested both taste and financial comfort. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers, while approximately 15 guests mingled with the easy familiarity of established friendships. "Preston!" Luke appeared at my elbow, his smile warm and seemingly genuine. "Great to see you again. Thanks for coming. It means the world to Cecilia." He'd aged well, still handsome in that polished way that had initially impressed me when they'd started dating. His handshake was firm, his eye contact steady. Before I could respond fully, small voices called out from across the room. "Grandpa! Grandpa's here!" 2 children rushed toward me with the uninhibited enthusiasm only the very young possess. The boy looked about 7, with Cecilia's dark hair and serious eyes. The girl, perhaps 5, had Luke's lighter coloring and a gap-toothed grin that transported me instantly to Cecilia's childhood. "Look what I drew for you, Grandpa!" The boy thrust a crayon masterpiece into my hands, a house by what appeared to be a lake, with stick figures labeled Grandpa and me, standing on what might have been a dock. "That's your house by the water. Mommy told me you live way up high." "It's beautiful, Thomas." His name came back to me suddenly, along with his sister's. "And Emma, how tall you've gotten." Emma beamed and grabbed my free hand. "Will you read me a story later? I have a new book about dragons." Her small fingers felt warm and trusting, completely innocent of adult complexities and past grievances. The evening flowed with unexpected ease. Guests introduced themselves, neighbors, Cecilia's marketing colleagues, family friends whose names I half remembered from years past. Everyone seemed genuinely pleased to meet me, offering compliments about what a thoughtful father I must be to maintain such a close relationship with my daughter. I accepted their assumptions without correction, feeling both grateful and slightly guilty. At 8:15, Cecilia called for attention. I'd like to thank everyone for coming to celebrate with me tonight. Birthdays become more meaningful as we get older. They're opportunities to appreciate the people who matter most. Her eyes found mine across the room. Dad, I believe you have something for me? The moment felt theatrical, yet sincere as I approached with the jewelry bag. The room quieted except for the soft background music. All attention focused on this father-daughter reunion. Cecilia's hands shook slightly as she unwrapped the navy box, her expression shifting from anticipation to genuine amazement when she revealed the diamond earrings. Dad, these are incredibly beautiful. Thank you. Her voice caught with what sounded like real emotion. Everyone, look at these gorgeous earrings my father chose for me. The guests responded with appropriate admiration and approval. What a thoughtful father! Those are absolutely stunning. Such exquisite taste. Their words washed over me like validation, confirming that I'd chosen well, that this gesture would indeed help repair our relationship. Cecilia fastened the earrings immediately, tilting her head to catch the light as the diamonds sparkled against her dark hair. She looked radiant, successful, happy, everything a father could want for his daughter. The sight filled me with profound satisfaction and something approaching peace. By 8:30, I found myself completely absorbed in animated conversation with a couple who owned a successful consulting firm. The wine had loosened my tongue pleasantly, and for the first time in months, I felt truly relaxed and content. The evening was exceeding my most optimistic expectations. "Excuse me," I said, setting down my empty glass. "I should get some water before I embarrass myself completely." Making my way toward what I assumed was the kitchen, I felt lighter than I had in years. Mark Wilson's paranoid warning seemed like a distant memory from someone else's nightmare. This was reality. Family, reconciliation, grandchildren who drew pictures of visiting Grandpa's lake house. The kitchen lay beyond an archway at the house's rear, modern appliances gleaming under recessed lighting. I moved through Cecilia's home with the easy familiarity of someone who finally felt welcome. No longer a guest, but family returning where he belonged. The refrigerator hummed quietly beside granite countertops that probably cost more than most people's cars. But tonight, such details only reinforced my pride in my daughter's success. Water glasses sat in neat rows beside the sink. I reached for one, already planning my return to the living room, where Emma had promised to show me her dragon book. The evening stretched ahead with pleasant possibilities. More stories from the grandchildren, deeper conversation with Cecilia, perhaps even a private moment to discuss the future of our relationship. Voices drifted from the open French doors leading to the terrace. Male laughter, the clink of beer bottles, casual conversation among friends stepping outside for fresh air. I paid little attention initially, focused on running cold water and enjoying the warm satisfaction that comes from successful family reconciliation. Then I heard the words that changed everything. The old man doesn't even suspect. 2 million, guys. Cecilia already prepared the family fund documents. My hand froze on the faucet handle. The water glass trembled in my grip as Luke's voice carried clearly through the open doors, his words slightly slurred but unmistakably coherent. "And he'll sign?" another voice asked with casual interest. "Of course. He's so happy about the reconciliation, he'll sign anything. Says he wants to provide for the grandkids' future." Luke's laugh held cruel amusement. "The stupid old fool actually bought expensive jewelry. Makes this even easier. Proves he's emotionally invested." The glass slipped from my numb fingers, shattering against the granite in an explosion of crystal fragments that seemed to echo through my chest. But the men outside continued their conversation, oblivious to the destruction their words were causing. "Smart plan," the second voice continued approvingly. "And when does this happen?" "Tonight. Cecilia has everything prepared. Legal documents establishing a family educational fund for the grandchildren. Very official, very legitimate sounding. He'll think he's being a responsible grandfather." "What about the other family members?" Won't they question sudden transfers? Luke's response came with the confidence of someone who'd considered every angle. There are no other family members. His wife died 2 years ago. Cecilia's an only child. Once he signs, the money transfers into an account we control jointly. By the time he realizes what happened, if he ever does, it'll be too late legally. I stood paralyzed in the kitchen doorway, pieces of broken glass at my feet like fragments of my shattered trust. Mark Wilson's desperate warning echoed in my memory. Under no circumstances should you go to that party. He'd known. Somehow, impossibly, he'd known exactly what was planned for tonight. The children's drawings, Cecilia's tears of joy, the expensive earrings sparkling in her dark hair, all of it calculated theater, designed to manipulate an old man's desperate longing for family connection. Even the grandchildren had been coached, their innocent artwork and requests for stories, weaponized against their grandfather's emotions. The best part is how grateful he'll be. Luke continued, his voice growing more animated with alcohol and anticipated success. He thinks this is about love and reconciliation. Doesn't realize we've been planning this since the lottery win became public knowledge 3 months ago. 3 months. They'd been watching, waiting, planning while I'd mourned our estrangement and hoped for healing. Every detail of tonight's celebration had been choreographed to exploit my paternal instincts and guilt about the lost years. My legs felt unsteady as the full scope of their deception became clear. Cecilia's nervous excitement hadn't been about seeing her father again. It had been anticipation of their plan's success. The beautiful house, the elegant guests, even Thomas's crayon drawing of visiting Grandpa's house, all props in an elaborate confidence game. I backed away from the kitchen carefully, my dress shoes crunching softly on broken glass, my mind racing through implications and possibilities. In the living room, Cecilia would be waiting with documents ready for my signature, playing the loving daughter role to perfection while counting down to the moment when she could steal $2 million from the man who'd raised her, loved her, grieved their separation for 2 painful years. The party continued around me, guests laughing and chatting while my world collapsed in silent devastation. I forced my face into neutral expressions, nodding appropriately at nearby conversations while calculating how to extract myself from this nightmare without revealing what I'd discovered. Across the room, Cecilia caught my eye and smiled, the same radiant expression that had welcomed me at the door, now revealed as the practiced deception of a skilled performer preparing for her final scene. Returning to the living room required every ounce of self-control I'd developed during 30 years of managing difficult business negotiations. My face remained pleasant, interested, fatherly, a masterpiece of deception that would have impressed even Cecilia if she'd known how much effort it demanded. The broken glass in the kitchen would remain undiscovered until morning, but the broken trust would last forever. "Dad, there you are!" Cecilia approached with a folder in her hands, her expression bright with calculated enthusiasm. "I wanted to talk to you about an idea I've been developing, a family investment fund for the grandchildren." "Tell me more, dear." The words emerged steady and curious, betraying nothing of the rage building like pressure behind a dam. I settled into the cream-colored armchair where I'd felt so welcomed an hour ago, back when I'd still believed my daughter loved me. She perched on the coffee table's edge, leaning forward with the practiced body language of a skilled salesperson. The diamond earrings caught the light as she tilted her head, those expensive symbols of paternal love now revealed as mere props in her performance. "This will secure their education and future," she continued, opening the folder to reveal official-looking documents, complete with letterhead and legal terminology. "Thomas and Emma deserve the best opportunities, and with your lottery winnings, we could establish something really meaningful for them." The papers looked legitimate, professional formatting, complex legal language, spaces marked clearly for signatures. How much time had they spent preparing this fraud? How many hours planning the perfect way to steal from the man who'd given Cecilia life, love, and every advantage he could provide? "Sounds interesting," I replied, accepting the documents with hands that remained perfectly steady despite the volcanic fury beneath my calm exterior. "Let me have some time to think this through." "Of course, Dad. Take all the time you need." Her smile held just the right mixture of hope and patience, as if she genuinely cared about my comfort with the decision, rather than manipulating me toward financial ruin. The cashier was right. What a naive fool I've been. I pretended to scan the legal text while my mind worked through different scenarios. Walking out immediately would accomplish nothing except alerting them to my knowledge. Confronting them publicly would create a scene that served no useful purpose. But there was another option, one that would turn their own manipulation against them with surgical precision. "This is quite comprehensive," I said, noting how Cecilia's posture shifted slightly forward, sensing success within reach. "Very thoughtful planning. You've obviously put considerable effort into the details." "I wanted everything perfect for the family," she replied, and the irony of those words almost broke my composure. Family, the concept they'd prostituted for money, while I'd grieved our separation and hoped for reconciliation. Other guests continued their conversations around us, unaware that they were witnessing the final act of an elaborate betrayal. Luke remained outside with his drinking buddies, probably still bragging about his clever scheme to defraud the stupid old fool who'd raised his wife and provided for his family. "You know what?" I said, closing the folder and handing it back to her. "This deserves proper consideration. Could I have a few minutes to think privately? Perhaps upstairs." "Of course." Cecilia's enthusiasm barely contained her eagerness to close this deal. "The bathroom is at the top of the stairs. Second door on the right. Take all the time you need." Standing up required careful attention to balance and facial expression. Every muscle wanted to shake with rage, but business training held firm. I was Preston Hunt, successful logistics manager, analytical thinker, strategic planner. I would not give these thieves the satisfaction of seeing how deeply they'd wounded me. "Thank you, dear. This is exactly the kind of family investment that requires careful thought." As I walked toward the staircase, I caught Emma tugging at her mother's dress, probably wanting attention now that the important adult conversation had paused. Cecilia automatically reached down to pat her daughter's head, while keeping her eyes fixed on me, calculating how long this consideration might take before she could secure my signature. Climbing the stairs, I felt each step carrying me further from the naive father who'd entered this house 2 hours ago, and closer to the man who would teach these people the true cost of betraying family trust. The upstairs hallway stretched before me, carpeted in soft beige that muffled my footsteps as I located the bathroom Cecilia had mentioned. Voices from the party below provided perfect cover. Laughter, conversation, the clink of glasses creating a soundtrack of celebration while I prepared their destruction. Inside the bathroom, I locked the door and pulled out my phone, checking the time. 9:15 p.m. Cecilia would expect me back downstairs within 10 or 15 minutes, eager but not pushy about securing my signature. Perfect timing for what I had planned. A small notepad sat on the granite vanity beside expensive hand soaps and monogrammed towels. Another reminder of the comfortable life my daughter had built while plotting to steal from her father. I tore off a sheet and found a pen in my jacket pocket, the same one I'd used to sign credit card receipts when buying those diamond earrings. The note required careful crafting. Too emotional would seem unhinged. Too cold might not convey the appropriate level of devastation. I wanted surgical precision, words that would cut deep while demonstrating exactly how thoroughly I'd understood their game. First draft. "Thank you for the enlightening evening. Heard everything on the terrace. Will is being changed immediately." Too brief. This deserved more impact. Second attempt. "Cecilia, congratulations on your performance tonight. Oscar-worthy acting. Unfortunately, I overheard Luke's conversation about the stupid old fool and his $2 million. As of tomorrow, my will changes. Every cent goes to charity for orphaned children. Perhaps they will prove more grateful than my own daughter." Better, but still not perfect. The final version needed to twist the knife while maintaining dignity. I wrote carefully, "Cecilia, thank you for the wonderful evening. As of today, my will is changing. All funds will go to charity for orphan children. Perhaps they will prove more grateful children than my own daughter, your father, who will never trust you with another cent." The words looked stark on the white paper, but they captured everything. My knowledge of their deception, the poetic justice of giving money to real orphans instead of fake needy family, and the finality of our destroyed relationship. $2 million to help children who genuinely needed support, rather than funding the comfortable lifestyle of accomplished thieves. Folding the note precisely, I checked my watch again. Guests were moving back inside from the terrace. I could hear increased activity downstairs as people sought warmth and fresh drinks. Perfect timing for my exit strategy. The hallway remained empty as I descended quietly, listening to party sounds from the living room. Everyone seemed gathered there now, probably discussing weekend plans and sharing neighborhood gossip, while my daughter counted down to her anticipated windfall. I moved through the house like a ghost, placing the folded note prominently on the coffee table where Cecilia would see it immediately upon my return from consideration time. Then I retrieved my coat from the hall closet, grateful for every business trip that had taught me efficient, quiet movement through unfamiliar buildings. The front door opened silently while party noise masked any sound. I walked normally to my car, started the engine at regular volume, and pulled away from the curb at exactly the speed limit. Anyone watching would see a man leaving early from a family gathering, nothing unusual or suspicious. 2 blocks away, I finally allowed myself a smile. In approximately 10 minutes, Cecilia would discover that her elaborate fraud had collapsed spectacularly. She would call frantically, leave desperate voicemails, probably even show up at my apartment building, but I would never answer, never acknowledge, never give her another opportunity to manipulate paternal love for personal gain. The city lights blurred past as I drove toward downtown Chicago, feeling lighter despite the evening's emotional devastation. Mark Wilson had risked his job to warn a stranger about impending fraud. The least I could do was thank him properly and perhaps apologize for my initial dismissive reaction. My phone remained silent on the passenger seat, but I knew that would change very soon. Cecilia was about to discover that her father wasn't quite the naive fool she'd assumed, and her reaction would probably be spectacular. For the first time in hours, I felt genuinely curious about what would happen next. The drive back to Magnificent Mile took 40 minutes through Saturday night traffic. Chicago's streets alive with couples heading to late dinners and young people beginning their weekend adventures. My phone remained strategically silent on the passenger seat, though I caught glimpses of the screen lighting up repeatedly, calls I had no intention of answering. At a red light near Navy Pier, I finally checked the display. 12 missed calls from Cecilia, each one probably more frantic than the last. The note had clearly achieved its intended impact. I could almost picture her reading those words, realizing that her elaborate deception had crumbled in the space of a single folded piece of paper. Treasured moments. Stayed open until 11 on Saturdays, its windows still glowing warmly when I found parking near Water Tower Place. Most other shops were closing, their security gates rolling down over darkened storefronts, but the high-end gift store maintained extended hours for customers with flexible schedules and significant purchasing power. Mark Wilson was organizing inventory near the jewelry counter when I pushed through the glass doors. He looked up with surprise, then concern, probably wondering why the agitated customer from earlier was returning after normal business hours. "You were right," I said without preamble, approaching the counter where he stood with a clipboard of price tags. "I came to thank you and apologize for not listening." His expression shifted from wariness to something approaching relief. "What happened?" "I heard their plan a week ago at O'Malley's bar," he began, setting down his clipboard and leaning against the counter. "Luke was bragging to friends about how easy it would be to fool his rich father-in-law. Something about family fund documents and $2 million. I didn't know who you were until I saw your credit card." The fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead while other late shoppers browsed quietly through the store's remaining open sections. Mark spoke in low tones, his voice carrying the weight of someone who'd struggled with whether to interfere in a stranger's business. "Why did you risk telling me?" I asked, genuinely curious about his motivation. "I was cheated in business myself a few years ago," he replied, his fingers drumming nervously against the marble countertop. "Lost everything to a partner I trusted completely. I know how much it hurts when someone you trust betrays you for money. I couldn't stay silent and let it happen to someone else." His honesty hit deeper than expected. Here was a man who'd suffered his own financial devastation, reduced to working retail jobs to rebuild his life, yet still willing to risk his employment to help a complete stranger avoid similar pain. "What did you do tonight?" Mark asked. Left them a note explaining that my will is changing. All funds go to charity for orphan children instead of fake needy family members. I smiled grimly. "Seems appropriate, don't you think?" Mark's laugh held genuine admiration. "Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Luke was so confident that you'd never suspect anything. Said you were desperate for family reconciliation." We stood quietly for a moment. Two men who'd learned painful lessons about trust and deception, finding unexpected common ground in a Chicago gift shop after business hours. "How about coffee tomorrow?" I suggested, surprising myself with the spontaneous invitation. It seems I've found an honest person in this city, which feels increasingly rare. "I'd like that," Mark replied, extending his hand across the counter. "And Preston, I'm sorry about your daughter. That kind of betrayal, it changes everything." His handshake was firm, his eyes direct and genuine. Everything Cecilia's had not been tonight. Here was a man who'd lost financial security, but retained his integrity, who'd risked his job to help a stranger simply because it was the right thing to do. "Thank you, Mark, for the warning, for caring enough to speak up, for being decent when everyone else was calculating personal advantage." I released his hand, but maintained eye contact. "Tomorrow morning, corner caf, near my building. I'll text you the address." Walking toward my car, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the beginning of genuine friendship based on mutual respect, rather than family obligation or business necessity. Tonight had cost me a daughter, but might have gained me something more valuable. Proof that honorable people still existed, even in a world where family members schemed to steal from their own fathers. My phone buzzed again on the passenger seat as I started the engine. Cecilia, no doubt, still frantically trying to salvage her collapse fraud, or perhaps genuinely panicked about losing her father's love along with his money. I left it unanswered and drove home through the glittering Chicago night, feeling genuinely optimistic for the first time in months. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.